All right, everyone, we start off today talking about a little theory that I have. It's not so much a theory as a speculation with regards to Mayor Ericadams and his fundraising chief. Brianna Suggs actually got an FBI raid the other day, and they took a bunch of laptops and devices, apparently a folder marked Ericadams. What they're ostensibly looking into is the possibility that the fundraising was illegal because there was a tie to the nation of Turkey, actually, and so you got illegal campaign contributions from a foreign source, and they're looking into that now. Now that's the mainline story. Behind the scenes, though, under the auspices of my general theory of differential law enforcement, which is that charges being brought or dropped, prosecutions being more or less lenient with plea deals and stuff, whether or not a judge dismisses cases, has all become politicized in the United States over time. And while it has been for a long time, that it's gotten worse, it's gotten more pervasive. But my theory goes is that the root of all evil effectively now that doesn't have to do with simple over-regulation really has to do with the judiciary system and the fact that one person is prosecuted and another person's not prosecuted based on their politics, their race, things like that. Differential enforcement. When I look at that, and I say it's become highly pervasive, so in significant political cases, I would expect more often than not that there's an aspect of politicization to any charges, raids, etc. that goes on, harassment, whatever. Why do I get the sneaking suspicion that there's the possibility that Ericadams is being specifically scrutinized not because of the evidence of wrongdoing, and it may or may not be there. In the end, of course, I'm not claiming that he's innocent of this or that his fundraising chief is innocent, Brianna Suggs. That's not the claim that I'm making. Why do I get the feeling that the FBI, which is overseen partially by the Biden administration in and of itself in a political capacity, would not have chosen to pursue this particular case unless there was something that Ericadams had done that pissed off the administration? What could that possibly be? Could it be being the first one in the entire nation, a significant Democrat, to call out the border crisis and try to put the onus on Biden? Could it be the fact that he and the mayor of Chicago and a few others right now are bitching for billions of dollars to try to shore up their own communities because the border crisis came home to roost in areas that it hadn't been in as much before? Generally what happened is people came across the border illegally and they stayed in the southern states. Very well, said Chicago voters, we'll continue to elect open borders loving socialists to power, to the Senate, to the House, mayorship, etc., because it's not affecting us. And so you get Ericadams, and so you get Gretchen Whitmer, and so you get all of these others, Lori Lightfoot originally, and so forth in Chicago. That's what you get. But then southern governors said, oh, I've got an idea. You know, it'll be cheaper to bus these people to big cities up north than it will be to shelter them here. We are overcrowded beyond capacity on the likes of which they can't even comprehend. And their infrastructure's not set up to compensate for it. Well, we'll send a couple 100,000 people to New York City, which I believe is now the total. Tens of thousands to Chicago. Hell, says Ron DeSantis, chuckling to himself in a move that actually was his shining moment, I'll send a bunch of them to Martha's Vineyard. They won't be there very long and it'll expose these NIMBYist liberals. Not in my backyard, say the rich NIMBYists. I want the illegals in the country. Don't get me wrong, I'm no racist. I just don't want them moving into my house. It's the same tale over and over again. Hey, we're going to vote for an open borders president, but then we're going to expect that they stay down there. Stay in your own lane, basically. Don't come to Chicago. It's cold and shit. Stay down there in San Antonio. Why do I get the sneaking suspicion that there's at least some possibility that the reason why this particular case is being pursued, because again, the Biden admin fiddles around with what the FBI is doing regularly. They have a whole team of FBI members that instead of trying to find, child traffickers or cartel members, sits there online and makes tips to Twitter and Facebook and sites like that to try to get people censored for wrongthink. This is literally a thing. By the way, because of a court injunction, it's currently still ongoing. Why the fuck do you think so many of us are algorithmically throttled right now on YouTube? I notice that doesn't seem to be a problem on Rumble. I notice that doesn't seem to be happening on BitChute or on Twitter. Oh, YouTube and sites like that, though, have a big problem with me. If you checked out just my YouTube and subbed for a while, you wouldn't get notifications. You'd think that I was dead in the water. Meanwhile, you look at some of the new tech platforms that I'm on, I'm doing just fine. There's a reason for that, and it ain't because I selectively lost talent on sites where I'm uploading the exact same thing. It's algorithmic in nature. YouTube has effectively admitted that it does this, by the way. Mayor Ericadams probably did break the law. This is probably with his full knowledge, although the fundraising person might be used as a fall girl, basically. Oh, well, I didn't tell Eric about that. It was all my fault. I'm really, really sorry. Can I pay the money back and avoid federal prison? Why do I get the feeling that this is effectively an attempt to intimidate Ericadams? Do you think that the partisan loyalty only goes so far, by the way? We've seen this a number of times, notably in the last few years. Like literally every day at this point, among Republicans especially. The unipartyists want Biden to be reelected. They don't want any problems for him. The border crisis is already a huge problem. It becomes 10 times worse when you have Democrats, far-left Democrats, complaining about that crisis and telling the administration that they should send money. It's great fodder for people on the other side of the argument that say, look, why don't you just tackle the border crisis? You wouldn't have to pay billions in taxpayer cash to a bunch of cities that aren't equipped to handle hundreds of thousands of illegals and asylum seekers. It becomes a lopsided argument, which has become a political disaster, by the way, for the Biden admin. Arguably, I think the border is still #1 issue on which he has the least approval, actually. So it's weighing him down like a millstone. And then you have Ericadams and these others chiming in because they're trying to save their own political careers. People in their communities are pissed at them and putting the blame on them. They're saying, no, it's not my fault. I don't run the southern border, #1. I don't have a legal method by which I can stop the busing, #2. And we don't have the means. We don't have the finances because there's just too many people. It's Biden's fault. It ain't my fault. You've got governors and mayors right now doing this, by the way. And so it becomes politically inconvenient. And then all of a sudden, just days after they say they reject the, I think it was $1.2 billion handout and say, no, we need 4. All of a sudden, the FBI raids one of these people's chief finance officers. It's very coincidental timing. I wonder how long this investigation has been going on, by the way, before they got this warrant, because they had supposedly probable cause. Again, I'm not saying Ericadams is innocent, and certainly not that the fundraising chief is necessarily innocent. They could be guilty as sin. Most campaigns do shit like this. It's about differential enforcement. Where you look, you will find crime. This is how you politically persecute people. You just ignore the crimes of the people that you agree with and refuse to investigate them on some technicality after stacking the courts usually, and then you hammer the people you don't like for things that others have done. Why do you think Donald Trump, for example, in the Mar-a-Lago Papers case, gets charged when fucking Mike Pence, he took his homework with him home, and he wasn't even a president, so that's much more problematic. Biden had a bunch of paperwork. That wasn't even behind a locked door, by the way. He gets off scot-free. Hunter's doing all sorts of crazy shit. He's barely looked into. He's given a sweetheart deal by the prosecution, etc., etc., etc. But Trump gets hammered. Or somebody that spoke out about the border crisis gets hammered. Auditing can be used the same way. Why do you think an IRS expansion is such a terrible idea? It's not that they're going to go after just people who make over $400K a year. Okay, some of them are political dissidents. It's interesting. It's almost like you want to weaponize another bureau more efficiently in order to target your enemies. This is, read the fucking writing on the wall. You can see it happening. We've got all the evidence we could ever need that this is happening. We've had it for years. People just didn't put it all together. They can't see the forest for the trees. They see it as little individual items. The Hunter case, the Adams case, Biden's paperwork, Trump and Mar-a-Lago. They see these as separate, but they're not. They're part of a unified system. They're part of the, at this point it's the law, differential enforcement apparatus. It's Soviet persecution. Plain as day. Clear and simple. There's no other way to fucking describe it. I would be surprised if this weren't politically motivated. Unless they had him totally dead to rights. They've effectively, they're not telling you yet, they got the warrant because they had basically proof and they're just trying to flesh out the case. That's possible, but why did they look into it in the first place when other politicians do the same thing and skate? Where do you think Nancy Pelosi got all of her money from? It wasn't from her congressional salary. This is the case with probably 90% of Congress. You think that this is the only mayor in the United States who's crooked? But he's the one that gets targeted despite being a Dem insider. There's only one reason in my mind why that happened. I've just explained why. It's differential enforcement. That's about all. Peace out.